The very first knockout game of this World Cup just told you everything about the next 3 weeks. South Africa, a team that wrote one of the great underdog stories just to get here against Canada, a co-host playing in front of its own continent. And for 90 minutes, Bafana were the better side. Nearly 60% of the ball, save after save out of the Canadian keeper. Everything an underdog is supposed to do, they did, and it counted for nothing. 90th minute, Canada, second best all might, scored the only goal of the game, 1-0. The team that played better flies home. The team that found one moment goes through. Sit with that, because it reframes everything we're about to break down. The romance is real, the performances are real, and none of it survives a single cold moment in a round where the better side and the winning side are not always the same. The margins just got thinner. A month ago, if you'd said that an archipelago of 500,000 people would walk onto a World Cup pitch to share it with the greatest player who ever lived, you'd have been laughed out of the room. Cape Verde, a country with fewer people than most European cities, playing in their first ever World Cup, are about to face Lionel Messi and Argentina. And it's just one of the stories these last 2 rounds handed us. Because the biggest names in this tournament spent the group stage walking into a trap nobody saw being built. Some escaped, some are already on flights home. So this is a countdown. 7 stories from the group stage that will decide who lifts this trophy and the knockout games they've set up. First, 30 seconds you actually need, because this World Cup doesn't work the way the last one did. 48 teams, 12 groups of 4. The top 2 from each group go through, and so do the 8 best third-place teams. That math creates something that has never existed before, a round of 32, an extra knockout round, win or go home, before we even reach the last 16. It sounds like a safety net for the big nations. More teams, more games, more room to recover from a bad night. Hold that thought, because the group stage just proved the exact opposite. Start with the graveyard. Uruguay, 2-time world champions, managed by Marcelo Bielsa, went out in the group stage. Saudi Arabia, who had spent years and fortunes building toward this, gone after the group stage. Iran, eliminated on goal difference on a night where every other result fell against them. And I'll be honest with you, watching a Bielsa side go home this early was the moment it clicked for me that this tournament has no mercy built into it. These weren't minnows. These were teams with pedigree, planning, and pressure behind them. And the expanded format, the one that was supposed to cushion them, gave them exactly enough rope. 3 games, 1 bad week, and the third-place table swallows you whole. That's the lesson the Giants learned the hard way. But every team that flies home early leaves a door standing open behind it. And the next story is about who walked through. Because while the favorites were falling, the outsiders were climbing. South Africa reached the World Cup knockout stage for the very first time. Bafana came into their final group game in 4th place and walked out of it in 2nd on a single second-half strike. Yes, their run ended tonight against Canada, but don't let that erase what they did to get here, because for me, it's still one of the stories of this tournament. Senegal didn't sneak through either. They tore Iraq apart 5-0 to force their way in. And Cape Verde, the smallest nation ever to reach a World Cup knockout round, did it on their debut, drawing their way through a group nobody expected them to survive. This is the part of the tournament that rewrites the map. A World Cup isn't supposed to be a geography lesson, but when a country of 500,000 knocks on the door of the last 16, the whole world suddenly learns where it is. The romantics will tell you these stories always end the moment they meet a real heavyweight, which raises the obvious question: who are the heavyweights left standing, and are they actually as solid as their reputations? 2 generations are about to give very different answers. Every World Cup is partly a referendum on the players who refuse to leave, and this one gave us 2 answers, pointing in opposite directions. Start with James Rodriguez. 12 years ago, he was the breakout star of a World Cup. This time, he came in with questions hanging over his fitness and his pace. He answered them by becoming the brain of the whole operation. Colombia didn't just scrape through, They won their group, finishing above Portugal, with James pulling the strings, one of the most capped World Cup players in Colombian history, a captain who reinvented himself from goal scorer into the man who makes everyone around him better. That's how the old guard is supposed to age, into a system. Then there's Cristiano Ronaldo, at 41, the oldest outfield player ever to start a World Cup match. And his group stage was the other kind of aging, the kind that lives on moments. Criticized for going missing in a shock 1-1 draw with DR Congo, he answered the only way he knows how: 2 goals against Uzbekistan, becoming the first man ever to score at 6 different World Cups. The record is monumental. But strip the record away and look at the team, and Portugal flickered rather than flowed, second in their group, reliant on a 41-year-old talisman to produce a flash when the football dried up. One old master became the structure, the other is still the spark a struggling side waits on. And the bracket has set up a final twist for Ronaldo. By finishing second, he and Lionel Messi can now only meet in the final, almost certainly the last World Cup for both. The torch isn't passed yet, but answering who finally takes it raises a harder question, because the 2 men most likely to are stranded on opposite sides of the draw. Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland, the 2 players everyone points to when they ask who inherits the game once Messi and Ronaldo are gone. And here's the strange part, they already met at this World Cup. France and Norway drew each other in the group stage, and Norway, already through, didn't even take it seriously. They rested Haaland on the bench and watched Ousmane Dembele tear them apart with one of the fastest hat tricks in World Cup history. France won 4-1, Norway slipped to second. That one decision changed everything, because finishing top sent France down the kinder side of the bracket. Finishing second threw Norway into the meat grinder. Ivory Coast first, then potentially Brazil, then England, then Argentina. 2 heirs to the same throne, now stranded in opposite halves of the draw. Which means the next time Mbappe and Haaland can possibly meet isn't in the quarters or the semis. It's the final, the one game where the future of the sport gets decided in person. And Norway's hour of complacency may have made it the only place it can happen. The future, though, can wait, because the single most romantic story of this entire World Cup is happening right now, and it pulls in the one name both of these heirs are still measured against. Cape Verde versus Argentina, the smallest nation ever to reach this stage, against the reigning world champions and Lionel Messi. On paper, it's a mismatch. In reality, it's the fixture this whole tournament has been building toward. The fairytale debutantes, who drew their way out of the group, standing in front of the team that has spent the last 4 years learning how to win without ever quite letting go of its captain. Everyone expects this to be the chapter where the fairytale meets reality and ends. The problem is what reality actually looks like this time, because reality, here, is a 39-year-old who just turned this group stage into his own personal coronation. But before we get to him, there's a favorite to deal with, and a question their fans don't want to hear. Brazil, 5 stars. One of the deepest squads in the tournament, the name at the top of nearly every power ranking that matters, and the team with the most still to prove out of everyone left. Because here's the honest read. Brazil closed the group stage by finding something. A 3-0 win over Scotland, a shape that finally looked like a team. But look at who it clicked against, and how. Scotland are not the bar a Brazil side measures itself by, and half of that scoreline came gift-wrapped by Scottish mistakes rather than Brazilian fluency. The result flattered as much as it convinced. Their reward is Japan, organized, ruthless on the break, and good enough to have beaten this same Brazil in a friendly only last October, coming back from 2 goals down to do it. And that's the whole story of this World Cup in one fixture. The favorite who hasn't been tested yet, against a team that already knows how to beat them. If you've watched the last 2 rounds, you know how that sentence can end. Every giant who's gone home looked the part right up until the tournament asked a real question, which is the perfect place to stop talking about the teams who might fall and start talking about the one man this whole tournament hasn't been able to touch. Lionel Messi spent this group stage doing something no one in the history of the World Cup had ever done. A record-breaking double against Austria carried him past Miroslav Klose as the tournament's all-time leading scorer. And then, in the final group game, Argentina already through, the group already won, he came off the bench and curled in a free kick against Jordan to make it 19. Here's the detail that tells you everything. That was the first time Messi had come off the bench at a World Cup since 2006, when, as an 18-year-old kid, he scored his very first World Cup goal. 20 years later, same bench, same cameo, another goal. The whole career, bookended in a single tournament. His reward in the round of 32 is Cape Verde, the fairytale debutantes, the smallest nation ever to make it this far. The romantics will be cheering for the underdog. But there's another story here, quieter and harder to argue with. This is almost certainly the last World Cup we will ever watch Lionel Messi play. 6 tournaments, 20 years, 19 goals and counting. A teenager who came off the bench in Germany, now a 39-year-old who still decides games the moment he steps onto the pitch. We've spent this whole video talking about who falls and who survives, giants and outsiders and heirs waiting their turn. But some players you don't measure against a bracket, you just watch them while you still can. That's number 1. Everything else is a footnote to it. So there's your map of the knockouts. The giants who fell, the outsiders who climbed, the old guards split in 2, the heirs stranded on opposite sides. And above all of it, one player in his final act. 32 teams, one straight road to the final, and a group stage that already showed you, if you were paying attention, exactly how this could end. Now I want yours. Which round of 32 game are you not missing for anything? Drop it below. And stick around. The next one breaks down the last 16 the moment it's set.